Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday.
And by now, you know what that means.
I hope.
It is time for another happy hour, or perhaps another unhappy hour. I feel like I keep doing this.
We'll see, I guess.
I'm trying to split up my unhappy hours, but I don't know.
Maybe that should just be your segment. Amy's unhappy hour.
I was really happy during the cinnamon roll one, but I have an unhappy response to it. So
Oh, no.
that one's coming up in a future episode. So we hope that you, wherever you are in your day, that you can take a moment and relax with us, however that means for you, whether it's with a drink, be it alcoholic or otherwise, or perhaps maybe just sitting and taking a deep, relaxing breath, whatever that is. Drink responsibly.
Yes.
Yes. And what are you sipping on, Samantha?
I decided I was going to go all in today and make myself a gin and tonic. Instead of lime, I used blood orange because I do love a good blood orange. Yes. And I put in our aviation gin, which I'm really hoping, we're not sponsored, but man, Ryan Reynolds, you need to hook us up. You say you love women, give us some free gin.
We had a moment where there was talks of a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool lap dance.
I was trying to work that in for our deals. We never got a response.
That's probably fair. We probably could have gotten in trouble for that. Well, that sounds lovely. I am drinking, I guess it's a whiskey sour.
Okay.
I don't have any ingredients in my house, if that's not clear. So it's whiskey and lemon juice and lime juice and nutmeg and a big ice cube.
Okay. Nutmeg.
Nutmeg on top. I got that from the person over on Savor we interviewed, the person who owns 1821 Bitters here in Atlanta.
Right.
And she made us like I think it was a whiskey sour. It might have been an old fashioned, but she put nutmeg on top. And ever since then, I've kind of...
Okay.
Yeah. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, I like that.
It feels fancy.
You are fancy in your Star Wars glass. Cup,
my Star Wars glass and my Star Wars workout shirt in my closet of
ready
Star
to
Wars
go.
Outfits.
I really wish we should have taken a picture like at least once a month of our Skype recordings because we have hit a decline. Like I am greasy. Like I am a greasy mess. And the little that I've cared, like at first I try to kind of put myself together and I kind of try to wear a little bit of makeup so I just don't look, blotchy or all that, to, now I'm done. I'm barely brushing my teeth. You're lucky if I brushed my teeth.
Yeah, there are some days we have Skype up so we can see each other when we record these. And when it gives you that, like, are you ready to go into video? And it's the close-up of your face. And sometimes I, literally jump back. I go,
I mean, I have become keenly aware of all the faults of my face, of my triple chin, of my greasy hairdos, my giant glasses. And I say this in loving ways of I don't need to be reminded that I've given up.
Got it.
But thanks, Skype, or video conferences in general.
And I love that, that option where it's like, should we try to make you look better?
Wait, I didn't get that. Well, they just gave up on me. They were like, no, we're not even going to try with you.
You have to go find it. You have to go. But that is an option.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. This morning, very heavy bags under my eyes. I was kind of shocked.
Please know we love ourselves, but we definitely are aware of what is this a syndrome now? Has this become a thing where the videos have made people acutely aware of themselves and started really declining? We've talked about the fact that cosmetic surgery has hit a pretty good incline, or at least the desire for it, because of our year of Zoom and Skype and all video conferencing.
Yeah, for sure. Yesterday I had therapy, and the therapy's obviously over video on computer. And my hair just fell because it's so heavy now. And the therapist was like, wow, your hair is long. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep. Thank you for noticing.
Yes. It's been a year.
We're not talking about all of the messes. No, we're coming back to your unhappy hour. So let's start this.
Okay. This one isn't super unhappy, but I know that I've talked about this before on the show, But something that I struggle with is expressing my own opinion. And I know a lot of you listening are like, no, you don't, which is fair. That is very fair. But I always feel like I have to have things to back up my opinion. It cannot just be my opinion. I need proof that I'm right, that my opinion is a valid opinion. And this is something I'm working on, trying to undo this view I have that things are either right or wrong instead of just different opinions. And there are some things that are right and wrong, but I'm thinking more along the lines of entertainment or, just being on the show. And that's something that has been, because the show's been on so long and it's such a research-based show, that finding that line between research and having your opinion, it has been a bit of a struggle for me. I don't know if that's something you've ever experienced.
I think it's interesting because, of course, we come behind people like Kristen and Caroline, who Kristen's whole philosophy was to over-research. And I know you were with them. But part of that was not just because she didn't want to be wrong or she wanted to be accurate. It's because she knew that during that time and today and even beforehand, you had to be able to meet your male counterpart and exceed them. And so having a show that is strictly for women alone has been a target. Like, we know this is a constant thing. And then on top of that, we know that Kristen had to prove herself as a scholar as well in order to be taken seriously. And I think this show specifically has followed that line for a long while. And I think Bridget and Emily changed it a little bit with trying to be less neutral, as where Kristen and Caroline were trying to follow that suit, was trying to be a little more neutral, but also feminist forward, as where Bridget and Emily came in during a time where you really couldn't. At this point, you can't not have an opinion about feminism and not actually have a side that you are representing or talking about or thinking on. And they also came a lot more opinion-based. And then you and I came on, and you still have that narrative with Kristen and Caroline. And I come in from the background of, I just want to be able to cite things. And then if I'm wrong, I want them to tell me and we'll correct it for sure. But more than anything else, I feel like one of the biggest points in our genre, I guess, and in our sect is that they don't want to hear opinions from women. And I'm tired of that narrative too.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things in there that I've been thinking about too, and what you just said of like, I do think women in general, my podcast experience, which has been pretty long at this point. I think it might be over 10 years, are under a lot more pressure to provide all of this research and back up what they say, like show me your sources, than what I've seen in some of my male colleagues. And I do want to say, like, it's not that I have a friend who always, when I bring up my insecurity about this, and more in the sense of like my personal life and less this show, but I have a friend who tells me, she always says, it's not wrong to want to do your research and to back things up. And it's certainly in the show, like, we do want to present facts, but also opinions. And you know, I that's something that I do research. I love researching things in general, but even like things that I love, I'm like, yes, let me look into how the economy of this fantasy world works. I would like to know that.
It's true.
Yes, it absolutely is true. But I think the problem is more that because I'm insecure in my own opinion, that my own opinion isn't valid, that it is not enough. And if people disagree with me, I might start immediately doubting what I think. And I actually have an example of this happening during a podcast once, where I was on the Bechdel cast and we were talking about the Avengers. And there were a lot of reasons. It sucks sometimes because you can't like outright say to an audience, like, we were on a time crunch and you have to move things along, or I would have definitely like dug into this more, or whatever it is. We were on a time crunch. And they said like something about Civil War and Captain America. And they're like, well, they made it, you feel like you should be on Captain America's side, even though he's clearly in the wrong. And I was like, immediately started doubting my opinion that I actually think Tony Stark was in the wrong.
Right.
In that. And it was like, I couldn't even say anything. Oh my God, what if I'm wrong about this? What if I've been like interpreting this incorrectly the whole time? What if I'm coming at it from an like uneducated point of view? And it just like immediately crumbled in on myself and didn't say anything.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about.
I think it also has to do with our history, your history, more so than mine, of being in a familial environment where you are constantly second guessed or constantly dismissed, even with your likes. And whether your likes coincide with their likes, you're still being dismissed as you don't know as much as us, be quiet. Which is hilarious because I'm like, look at the woman you are today. I could not imagine that girl to where you are today. But I think that happens to so many women in general, especially trying to find their own and trying to fit in. And that's that whole other conversation that has been like rattling in my head, is this whole narrative of acclimating to whatever society you're at. And for women, what does that look like? And that is, you don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be too strong. You don't want to be all these things. But one of the things that we know is that our opinions are going to be dismissed. So therefore, even if our opinions are facts, they still may be dismissed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that expectancy that makes you automatically go ahead and go down that pessimistic route of, they're not going to listen anyway. Why am I even trying?
Yeah. And I think too, it's frustrating. I mean, it makes sense conversationally, but there's also, I was raised in a very like, do not rock the boat household. And in fact, when I would have friends where I would see their family fight and it was like a healthy fighting, you know, like not, I would be like shocked. In my family, you did not rock the boat until you were screaming at each other. Like there was no in between. And so when you're having a conversation with someone, it does make sense to me that, at least in my case, and I think for a lot of women, you don't disagree, perhaps. Or either you do, but maybe in a much softer way, or you do start second guessing yourself kind of immediately. Of like, okay.
Right.
And I know people have written in before and they've called me out on that, which is, I mean, true. And sometimes the conversation moves so fast that, like, even if you were going to say something, even if I would have been like, actually, Captain America was in the right on this one, like, it's too late.
That could bring us to a whole other one, which we should talk about, is being in a spotlight at a moment and knowing people are going to hear you, which is, again, brand new to me. And I was in shell shock the first year because of how many would critique every little thing that may have been like me missaying a word, missaying a sentence, or not being able to say what I want in time in order for it to make my point. And again, like, I absolutely agree. When I talk about some things that I'm completely wrong, we need to be addressed and we want to correct those things. But things that are being like picked on just because you have nothing better to do than to critique a person. Why didn't you do this? I would have done this, the whole, well, actually.
Yeah.
Which is, I swear to God, the next person that does that to me, I may punch them in the throat. It's a good thing I haven't seen people. But it's kind of that whole narrative that it's really easy to go ahead and be like, oh, you're an awful person because of this 3 words you said, or because of the 3 words you didn't say. You know, it's such a hard line to follow sometimes. And I don't make excuses in saying that we can't be held accountable. Nah, I don't believe in cancel culture in the sense that I don't think that exists. As much as people think that exists, I think people are being accountable, and that is what it is. And I'm all about accountability. But the narrative of whether it's literally an opinion of, well, you didn't do this like I said it was, or you didn't say the correct words. I think we got corrected at one point during our hop over series for Ridiculous History because you said pantyhose. And he was like, that didn't exist. And yeah, it was a he. That didn't exist in the 1940s or whatever. I'm like, all right, fine. Silks, stockings, however you want to call it, it existed in the 20s. It existed before. And it was very like, why? Why do you have to do this? You know what I mean? Like when you're like just poking, just for the sake of poking, you're being an That's my opinion.
there you go, expressing an opinion. All right. Yeah. And I would be interested to hear from any listeners if you also, listeners, when we complain about this, we know most of you are like fantastic and amazing.
Oh my God, we've got the best supporters. Like that is not even a joke. I think we have, I don't know if I could have lasted and say this is my job without the amazing response from the fam. Like we have an amazing, strong group of people and I love it. And I love the fact that I can put something on social media that may be politically leaning. And for those who want to argue, the fam's going to back me up. Like I don't even have to do anything because they're like, no. Like I think it's beautiful. And even when they're correcting us, most of the time it's really genuinely kind. Yes. And it's kind of that narrative where I'm like, I'm going to do my mea culpa because they are completely right. And I need to fix this. So I think more often than not, our listeners, again, that's what I talked about, the other guy who doesn't not regular listener. We don't have that. I think our family is beautiful and it's so encouraging. And again, like I said, I don't know if I could do this job without those people. Even though sometimes I focus a lot on the negative, the positives are the reasons why I'm like, okay, I can keep going. Just take this moment and remember this is 1% of the, other percent who does care and see us as human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're right. It is when you're in a public space of like having to formulate your how you're going to say your opinion when perhaps you weren't prepared can be disorienting. But also, like, clearly there are things that I would not crumple. Like, I just believe very firmly.
I've seen
Yes. But I do think like this whole research thing is sort of a support where I have to have that to just have like, it could be a very simple, like, I like this movie. It could be something that's like, and if like everyone else in the room is like, no, it's terrible, then I start doubting myself. So I'm trying to come to a place where I can be like, maybe the movie is bad, but I like it. And that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can just have my own opinion and I don't start immediately doubting my opinion.
Like my love for The Mummy too, Anney.
Yes. I will support you. It's not wrong of you to love what you love in this instance. Thanks again for letting me share this. It's just something that bothers me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing, because obviously I had some opinions as well.
Yes. And if you have opinions, listeners, we would love to hear them. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff Mom Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
Who's one of the best, in my opinion.
Yes. Oh, yes. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I've Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.